Snow stings my face atop Observatory Mesa as a shivering girl presses a star-shaped Polaris pin into my palm. Who locked her in the dark? Snow writes in every direction up here, sideways, bright, and blinding. The ponderosa pines creak like old ships as the wind runs the ridge. My boots bite into crust above Observatory Mesa where the dark dome of Lowell hunches through the squall. I'm breathing steam and static as my radio hums against my shoulder. Flag PD 21, foot patrol north of Mars Hill Road. Checking a welfare call, I say, my voice clipped for the air. The call came from a dog walker who thought she saw a child running between tree trunks like a shadow. In weather like this, shadows die if you don't catch them fast. I sweep the beam of my flashlight across bark flash frozen in rime. Movement, just a twitch, in the snow cut. I crouch. There, under a fallen log and a roof of branches, a small form sits hugging her knees, tiny knuckles white under an oversized denim jacket gone stiff with ice. She can't be more than 6, maybe 7. Blonde hair, tangled and wet, lashes rimmed with frost, dirt smudges on her cheek like thumbprints pressed and never washed away. "Hey, kiddo," I say softly, dropping to a knee. "I'm Officer Julia. You're okay. I'm here." She doesn't answer. She stares past me, blinking slow, the kind of blink that scares me because it means we're near the edge of her body's heat. Under her fingers, something metal glints, star-shaped, small as a quarter. She's clutching it so tight the points press little moons into her skin. I take my glove off so the touch is human. The cold stabs. "Can I see what you've got?" Her hands tighten. "Okay. You can hold it. We're not going to take it. I just want to get you warm." I shed my parka, shrug it around her shoulders, then tuck a Mylar blanket from my patrol kit over the coat. The foil sings in the wind. I slide a heat pack beneath her jacket at the armpit, then another at the sternum. Her lips are blue-gray. There's no blood I can see, just cold, deep, and hungry. I thumb my radio. "Dispatch, 2-1. I've got a juvenile female, approximately 6 years exposure, conscious, minimally responsive, request Flagstaff Fire and transport to Coconino Children's." "Copy, 2-1. Units en route." "Good girl," I tell the kid, my voice lowered the way you talk to scared horses. "We're in Flagstaff, big pine country. Ever see the observatory lights?" Her eyes flick just once toward the dome. "You like stars?" I try. Silence. But the fist around that star-shaped pin eases for a beat. I catch the detail. 5 points, a tiny north arrow etched at the top. It's a Polaris pin. I've seen one before in outreach kits at school career nights. Astronomy clubs hand them to kids who find the North Star. The metal is clean and bright against the grime of her palm. "Pretty," I say. "That's your North Star." I peel off my beanie, pull it down over her ears. "What's your name?" The wind scrapes the branches for her answer. I keep talking because warmth isn't only heat. "When I was little, my dad would take me out here after monsoon season. We'd lie on our backs and try to pick out Cassiopeia. He'd say, 'Jules, when you're lost, find the North Star. It's steady when everything else moves.'" The girl's gaze lands on my mouth, as if she's measuring the shape of the word steady. I check her hands, the nails ragged, beds dirty, but it's the skin beneath her wrists that stops me. Faint lines, not cuts, not scrapes, indentations, as if something thin and ridged pressed there again and again. My stomach tightens. Sirens roll somewhere down the hill, softer in the snow, then louder until a wash of red-blue ghosts the pines. Flagstaff Fire's engine noses through powder on the access road. 2 medics in navy scramble up the slope with a soft stretcher, breath pluming. 6-year-old, outdoor exposure, I say, skin cold, slow responses, no apparent injuries. She's been clutching that pin. Let it be. "Copy." The older medic, Mitchell, gray at the temples, steady hands, peels the Mylar back an inch to check capillary refill. Then slides warm packs against the girl's neck. "You found us a fighter," he murmurs. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Her jaw works once. The smallest sound comes out, dry as winter grass. A syllable that could be anything. "Let's get her moving," Mitchell decides. We transfer her to the soft stretcher with the care you use for blows that haven't declared themselves. They strap a pediatric O2 mask near her face without forcing it. She keeps that star pin pinned between her fingers like if she lets go, the sky will fall. As we carry her downhill, I keep pace, one glove off again, my bare palm on the back of her hand because she's clinging to me as if touch is a ladder. "You're doing great," I whisper. "We're going to the children's hospital. Bright murals, warm blankets, hot cocoa if you want it." Her eyes flicker once, hunger flaring and dying fast. She's not hearing cocoa. She's hearing the words hospital and trying to decide if they hurt. At the rig, the medic swings open the side door. The metal latch slides with a hard, hollow click. In that instant, the girl's whole body snaps, a rabbit bolt inside a snare. Her pupils blow wide, her breath jackhammers. Her hand clamps so hard on mine that the star pin bites into both our skins. She turns her face away from the door and the sound, and into the mylar, small and silent, like it's a closet she knows too well. "Easy," I say, going still, lowering my voice to a slow metronome. "That's just the door. It's okay. It won't touch you. You're safe. You're safe with me." Mitchell's eyes cut to mine over the mask. He heard it too. The trigger and the latch. The sound that has more story stuffed inside it than any words she's managed. "I'm riding in," I tell him. He nods once. "Seatbelt." We tuck warm blankets around her. I slide onto the bench, knees braced, one hand still under hers. The other medic, Alvarez, hands me a child-size bear from a bin. Cheap polyester. Half of its stitching ripped. I glance at the pin in her fist. "Can we hitch it to the bear?" "Clean enough," Alvarez says. "Go ahead." I thread the pin through the bear's ear, the little North Star catching monitor light. I show it to her. "Look, your star can ride too." It buys a half-inch of breath. She doesn't loosen her grip on me, but her eyes flick to the bear, to the pin, and back to the door, measuring the space between sounds. We roll. Snow hits the windshield like it's tried to outrun us and lost. The rig rocks. Alvarez murmurs vitals in the way you talk to yourself when a child is listening anyway. Warmed fluids ready, O2 on standby. No loss of consciousness. HR slow, but climbing. "Where were you headed, sweetheart?" I ask, barely above the hum of the heater. "Toward the lights?" She blinks, then nods, one single decisive motion. Toward the lights. The observatory. Stars. "Good call," I whisper. "The lights are a kind of north, aren't they?" She swallows. For the first time, her mouth shapes a word into the warm air near my wrist, so soft I almost miss it. Po. Lar. A ghost of a sound. "Polaris." "Yes," I say, throat thick. "Polaris. That's right." The rig turns onto Beaver Street. Red brick blurs by. The Northern Arizona University sign, a coffee shop with lights like a string of small suns. We back into the bay at Coconino Children's. Nurses in colorful scrub tops, wolves and constellations and dinosaurs, wait with a warmed gurney. I step down with the stretcher and the cold slaps my cheeks. A brief shock before we enter the gush of heat and the smell of sanitizer and crayons. Inside, under bright, clean light, she looks smaller. The pin gleams from the bear's ear like a tiny lighthouse. A nurse takes scissors to her jacket sleeve. She flinches at the snip-snap and clutches the bear to her chest. "Hey," I tell the nurse, "slow with the scissors. Sound matters." The nurse nods, understanding in her eyes. "Copy." "Name?" a resident asks me at the foot of the bed. I look at the child. She lies there, eyes rimmed red, lips cracking in the warm air, the bear pinned with the North Star tucked in the crook of her elbow. 100 names flick through my mind. Names of girls I've met on night shifts, names on reports, names lost in paper. I try a gentle test, not a question, not a demand. Just air shaped like trust. Nora? Her head turns, a cautious tilt, toward the sound of the name. Not fully, not yet, but toward. From somewhere down the hallway, a maintenance cart slides a bolt to lock a supply closet. The sound is metal on metal, familiar and unforgiving. The girl's breath catches like a match pinched out. I move closer, 2 fingers hooking the bear's stitched paw, drawing her focus back to the star. It's just a door, I say, steady, steady. You're safe where there are stars. Her fingers loosen, barely. Her eyes lift to mine, full of a question she's not ready to ask, and I'm not ready to answer. "Officer?" the resident says, pen hovering. "Can you stay through intake?" "I'm not going anywhere," I say. Outside, the snow keeps shouldering the windows. Inside, the sound of that lock flickers like a small, cruel memory we've only just met, and the child's hand, still in mine, warms by imperceptible degrees as the North Star watches from the bear's ear, bright and stubborn, as if night itself is something you can pin down and make answer. The nurses move like they've done this 100 times, because they have, and somehow still manage to make it feel like the first time matters. A child life specialist with a badge shaped like a rocket ship kneels near the bed and asks if the bear has a name. But I catch her eye and slice a tiny no across my throat. Too much naming when we don't even have this child's. She nods, pivots, sets a small constellation nightlight on the counter and clicks it on. Blue stars breathe across the ceiling tiles. "Vitals stabilizing," the resident says. "We'll keep warming slowly. No rigid rewarming. Watch for afterdrop." A printer chatters. Forms spit out. A social worker appears in soft shoes that make no sound. "I'm Monica," she says, low. "We've paged DCS on call. You're the reporting Leo?" "I am," I say. "Officer Julia McCray." "We'll need your statement," Monica says gently. She keeps her gaze on the child and puts a soft foam triangle under the girl's knees like she's building a tiny tent where the body can belong to itself. The lock sound from the supply closet is still echoing in my head. The way the kid froze. I look at her wrists again. The faint ridged indentations. Not rope, not zip ties. The pattern wrong for either. Something thin and flat and repeating like a plastic slider. Like, you know how a boxcar door slides on that ribbed track? The thought arrives uninvited, and I push it away because it sounds like the conspiracy board version of police work, and I don't do conspiracy boards. I do notes and timestamps and what can be proven in court. A nurse with her hair in a messy bun and a patch of Orion stitched on her scrub pocket steps in with a warmed blanket folded like a gift. She tucks it in with a hand that knows where fear hides. When the girl flinches at the swish of the curtain rings, the nurse breathes slower and the whole room drops its shoulders. "Hey," the nurse says to me without looking up. "You're the one from Observatory Mesa?" Her voice has the high country rasp you get from a lifetime of thin air. "That's me." "Good catch," she says, and flips the blanket edge up under the child's chin with exacting care. "I'm Elise." Her badge reads, Elise Porter, RN. There's a tiny enamel pin beside her name, Saturn with a ring. She notices the star pin on the bear's ear and leans in, her eyes catching the north arrow. "Oh," she says, like a memory surfaced, "Polaris." The girl's breath hitches. Elise goes still, then, lightly, to the bear. "That's a special star. The one that doesn't run away." The girl's eyes float to her face, wary but steady. Elise keeps her hands visible and her voice a whisper meant for one pair of ears. "You holding on to Polaris for somebody?" The girl's fingers tighten on the bear and the pin, and for the first time there's something like defiance in her grip. Not just clinging, choosing. Monica's phone buzzes. "DCS ETA 20 minutes, she murmurs. Name still unknown. We'll use Jane Doe for now. I hate Jane Doe. It strips a story right off a child and leaves a file jacket. She responded to Nora earlier, I say, not claiming not knowing. No last name. Okay, Monica says, jotting it down. Nora, tentative. The resident checks pupils, reflexes, keeps his language clean of fear. No obvious fractures. Some old bruising near the scapula, resolving. We'll scan if she spikes, or if labs concern us. He drops his voice, angled to me. Those wrist marks. I saw them, I say, and the reaction to locking sounds. I nod. Yeah. Elise glances between us, hearing what we don't say. Her hand drifts to her scrub pocket, where a little flashlight sticks out like a cigarette. Instead of flicking it on, she opens a lower cabinet and pulls out a portable projector no bigger than a paperback. We use this for distraction, she tells Monica. It's better than cartoons if a kid's brain's fixed on one idea. Which idea? Monica asks. The sky, Elise says simply. She darkens the overheads with a dimmer and hits a button. The ceiling blooms with a night full of familiar friends. Cassiopeia, the Big Dipper, a halo of cold light that makes even the adults blink like we've stepped outside. Elise shifts the field until the 7 stars of the Dipper line up like a ladle poured across the room. She points with the soft, not direct kind of pointing you don't use with scared kids. See those? She whispers. The pointer stars. They show you where north is. The girl's gaze moves as if pulled by thread to the imagined line. Elise slides her finger along the air to the small bright dot just past the Dipper's rim. Polaris, she breathes. If you can see Polaris, you can always go home. The child's lips shape around the light like it's heat. She turns the bear so the metal star shows. A small sound leaves her throat, thicker now. She swallows. Tries again. Nor. Her palm lifts half an inch, the pin catching and throwing a tiny comet of reflection across Elise's collarbone. Nora! Monica writes it down, but not before meeting the child's eyes. Thank you, Nora, she says, like the name is hers to give and she's giving it back. I'm glad to meet you. Elise makes a quick, quiet decision of the kind nurses make without asking permission because the alternative is creating a committee where a moment is needed. Nora, she says, I need to check the skin on your arms to make sure the cold didn't bite too hard. I'll count down and stop if you say stop. Can we try? She holds out her own wrist first, shows the path her fingers will take, and then waits. A full long breath for consent. The small chin moves once. Yes. Elise lifts the blanket edge an inch. Her touch is a moth's wing. She sees what I saw and more. Faint parallel indents, the kind that don't come from rope, from something manufactured. The ribs of a plastic track. She doesn't say it. She takes a picture with the hospital's forensic camera, date stamped, per protocol, then tucks Nora back in like the image is a thing that might bruise if it's not handled gently. I step out to the hall to call dispatch and log the contact with DCS. Snow screws across the parking lot in ghostly sheets. On the horizon, the observatory dome wears frost like a crown. My shoulder radio mutters. I answer, my voice automatic. When I hang up, Elise is standing beside me, arms knotted, eyes fixed on the window, the way you do when the view outside is safer than the one inside your head. That pin, she says. We used to give those out at winter star parties. Outreach at schools, too. We? Elaine. She catches herself. Regroup. A friend, Elaine Bennett. She ran a program that brought telescopes to trailer parks and reservation schools. Find your north? It's steadier than people, she used to tell kids. She manages a small smile that doesn't quite land. Polaris pins for the ones who could trace it without the app. The name drops into the quiet like a pebble into snow. Elaine Bennett. Something in me leans. You knew her well? Elise nods. Was, a caseworker in youth services. Lives with her daughter. Lived. She swallows. She got into it with a supervisor about placements, fussed about winter safety holds being used like storage. She said some of those holds weren't safe. "Where is she now?" I ask. Elise's mouth flattens. "She stopped coming by. We traded emails. Then she went quiet." She looks down the hall toward Nora's room. She has a daughter, about 6. My scalp prickles. "Name?" Elise steadies herself on the sill. "Nora." The corridor contracts. The stars on the projector glow faint through the doorway. An artificial sky in a world that keeps throwing locks. My heartbeat picks up, not with adrenaline, but with a colder thing. Possibility meeting fact. "Elise," I say, "you have her emails?" She nods. "Buried, but yes." "Pull them up," Monica says, stepping into our circle like she'd been there all along. She lowers her voice. "If there are safety concerns documented, they're evidence. We'll disclose to DCS and PD." We duck into the cramped staff lounge that smells like burnt coffee and microwave popcorn. Elise drops into a chair, taps her login into the dusty hospital desktop. The screen wakes, then thrashes through inbox updates. She types Elaine in the search bar. A trickle of messages fills the frame, then a small flood. Subject lines: Winter schedule, rail outreach. Pin restock for Friday. Concern temp placements. Call me. Then, one with no subject, the sender set to delayed delivery, a minute before midnight last month. Elise opens it. The text is short. A single paragraph, clean, deliberate, and without panic, which scares me more. If anything happens to me, check the yard office. The schedule on the wall isn't a schedule. It's a code. They call it temporary observation. It's not. E. I hear my father's voice in my head, the old words from Nights on the Mesa. When you're lost, find the star that doesn't move. I look at the child in the next room. The star pin warm from her palm. The flinch it locks. The wrist marks like rails. The winter. The word yard. The whisper of trains in a town braided by tracks. Elise scrolls down. There's an attachment. Grainy photo, winter star party night. A woman in a knit hat with constellations stitched in white tilts her head toward a little girl bundled in a puffer jacket. Between them, on the girl's coat, a tiny 5-pointed glint, a Polaris pin. The little girl's hair spills from under a beanie in a pale river, Nora. Monica exhales. The kind of breath that ends conversations. "We need DCS on this now," she says, "and transit police looped in." "And a judge," I say. "If there's a supervisor involved, he'll try to move her fast." A knock at the lounge door pulls our eyes. A security guard leans in. "Officer McCray, there's a man in the waiting room asking about a found child off Observatory Mesa. Gave the name Craig Milton. Says he's with Youth Services supervisor, here for an emergency removal." My mouth goes dry. Elise's hand tightens around the mouse until her knuckles blanch. In the next room, under a borrowed sky, a little girl traces a line with her eyes from the dipper's rim to a point that doesn't run. And in the hall, the automatic door whispers open on a gust of snow and a man's practiced smile. We aren't ready for yet. I spot him before he spots me. Gray overcoat still dusted with snow, salt and pepper hair arranged to look like he didn't try, a laminated badge swinging from a blue lanyard that says Arizona DCS in block letters. The kind of public servant polish you see at budget hearings, not at midnight in a hospital hallway with fluorescent hum and the smell of bleach sitting heavy on the tongue. "Officer McCray?" he asks, already extending a hand. "Craig Milton, Supervising Field Manager, Youth Services. I'm here for an emergency removal." His hand hangs there like bait. I don't take it. "You have a court order?" I ask. "Emergency removal is under agency authority," he says smoothly. "Title 8. The statute is clear." "The statute also requires imminent danger, documented," I say, "and proper ID. We'll verify both." The smile twitches at the edges. He produces a wallet card and a letter on letterhead. The card has his photo and an ID number. The letter bears a digital signature I can't verify with my eyes. He sets them on the counter so I have to lean closer than I want. His knuckles are clean, cuticles manicured, but the soles of his boots leave a faint black sprinkle when he steps, a soot that doesn't belong to hospital floors. Rail dust. The thought arrives uninvited. I push it away and file it under later. Monica appears at my shoulder without sound. "Mr. Milton," she says in that tone that's warm and also made of law, "I'm the hospital social worker on duty. For removals, we require a verifiable order or a direct transfer from the responding officer when the child is already in protective custody. This child was brought in by police in the field." Milton's eyes track to her, then back to me, as if deciding which terrain is softer. "And I appreciate your diligence," he says. "But delayed action can be harmful. I have a foster placement prepared." The word placement does a quiet, ugly thing in my chest. "Prepared when?" I ask. "Just now," he says easily. "From where?" Monica asks. "Our network," he says, and his smile flattens when she doesn't smile back. I radio dispatch and step a foot away because I want his voice on tape and mine clean. "Flag PD 2-1. I need employment verification for Craig Milton, supervisor with the Department of Child Safety. And please patch me to DCS on call, reference a juvenile at Coconino Children's." "Copy," dispatch says. Elise is at the doorway to Nora's room, hands in her pockets. The portable projector still painting the ceiling in quiet stars. She's watching without watching, eyes flicking between Milton and the child behind the curtain like she's counting breaths. Milton adjusts his tie. Subtle, practiced. "Officer, I know you have procedures. I respect them. But I also know the courts. Monday morning I'll have the signed dependency petition on the judge's desk. Tonight, I have authority to move the child to a safer environment." "Then you won't mind if we confirm your authority," I say. Monica tilts her head, calm as a teacher whose students have tried everything before honesty. "While we verify," she says, "no one will disturb the child. Trauma-informed care, doors stay open, we avoid abrupt sounds." "I'll be gentle," he says. "No," she says, still gentle. "You'll wait." Dispatch returns with the DCS operator on a patch line. "This is DCS on call," a tired voice says. "Who's calling?" "Officer McCray, Flagstaff PD," I say. "We have a 6-year-old female, found outside in extreme weather, presenting with signs indicative of possible confinement trauma. A Mr. Craig Milton is here stating he's a supervising field manager with DCS. He's requesting emergency removal." There's a pause, rustle of papers. "We show Craig Milton as a unit supervisor," the voice says. "But emergency removals from hospitals require coordination with medical and law enforcement. Do you have an open case on a child named Nora? Possibly Bennett?" My voice drops. "Mother Elaine Bennett." Another pause, a longer one. "I'm not seeing an open file," the operator says carefully. "We have a historical case. Elaine Bennett, employee, filed multiple internal concerns regarding winter placements. Access limited. Let me escalate." "Please do," I say. "And flag this. The child reacted to lock sounds, has patterned wrist indentations. The mother may be missing. We need a judge, not a clipboard." Milton's polite facade thins. "Officer," he says, "you're out of your lane. DCS will handle." "My lane tonight is this kid," I say, and hear my own father in the bones of my voice. "You can handle the paperwork when a judge says you can handle her." Monica turns to the security guard who brought Milton in. "We're all done with the waiting room," she says softly. "Please ask Mr. Milton to have a seat over there by the aquarium." Milton doesn't move. He folds the letter closed with 2 fingers. "If anything happens to this child because you delayed—" "Because we made sure," Monica says. "You can direct your concern to risk management in the morning. Tonight, we care for a little girl." He steps closer by a degree that he would read as friendly in daylight and reads like pressure here. His breath smells like mint he forgot to let dissolve. "I can call the judge now," he says. "Do," I say. "Put the order in my hand." He stares a beat, then clicks his jaw shut, takes his phone, and walks to the fish. The lionfish waves its impossible spines. A toddler asleep across two chairs snores like a buzzing neon sign. The television whispers about weather on mute. I angle to Elise. "You okay?" She nods once, too fast. "I've got her," she says. "We'll keep the room quiet." "Good," I say. "That projector, keep it on." She almost smiles. "Polaris," she whispers. I step into the doorway. Nora is propped at a slant under the projector sky. The bear with the pin rides the slope of her ribs. The star glints in slow, steady rhythm with her breathing. I kneel, so we're level. "Hey, Nora," I say softly. "There's a man outside who wants to talk about moving you, but we don't go anywhere unless it's safe. I'm staying." Her eyes find my face like the North Star in a cold sky, small, fixed, a reference point. She doesn't speak, but the muscles around her eyes soften a fraction. That's consent in a language I'm learning on the job. I stand. Monica meets me with a clipboard and a pen. "If this goes sideways," she murmurs, "can you assert a temporary police hold?" "I can if I have probable cause of abuse," I say. "I do." "Then do it before he finds a sleepy judge." I sign a short form that triggers a hospital protocol. Until a lawful order is verified, the child remains under medical care. No unauthorized removals. Security posts at the end of the hall, visible but not loud. Elise clicks the starlight dimmer down a notch so the bulbs hum like distant crickets. My phone buzzes. Unknown number. I answer, and a woman's voice comes in crisp, East Coast vowels smoothed by years in arid air. "Officer McCray, Eleanor Pike. Monica gave me your number. I chair the Children's Advocacy Fund for the county." "I'm listening," I say, stepping into the alcove by the vending machines. "I fund counsel for emergency protective petitions and audit requests," she says. "If there's a supervisor attempting a midnight removal without a clear case, I can put an attorney on a protected line in 5 minutes, and I can underwrite document retrieval for any public records request you need." "How do you know we need it?" I ask. "Because I've had 6 winter calls in 3 years that smelled like this," she says. "The hospital calls me when something's wrong." I watch Milton at the aquarium, phone pressed to his ear, face composed in that empty way men wear when they're careful about which part leaks. The soles of his boots are still leaving a faint shadow of soot. "We'll take the help," I say. "We also need transit police looped in. There's a rail yard office we have to see." "Name it," she says. "I'll make the introductions." She texts within seconds. An attorney on standby. A transit police lieutenant's cell. A court clerk who can wake a judge without pretending to apologize to. I forward the contacts to dispatch. The machine hum in the wall behind my head sounds like a train in miniature running through snow. Dispatch pings back with a patch to Transit PD. A baritone answers. "Lieutenant Harris?" "Officer McCray, Flagstaff PD," I say. "We have concerns about possible confinement of a child in relation to a yard office. Looking for a quick consult and, if warranted, a warrant." "Name?" he asks, and when I give him Nora's, he swears under his breath. "We've had rumors," he says. "Foreman rotating temporary observers when weather gets bad. Thought it was just men drinking coffee and bragging. Guess not." "Can you meet me at the yard office if we get probable cause through the door?" I ask. "I can," he says, "but you'll have to get the door." "I'll get it," I say. When I hang up, Milton stands and strolls back, that easy smile back in place. "Good news," he says. "A judge is reviewing our request. I'll have authorization shortly." "Great," I say. "I'll wait right here." He glances down the hall toward Nora's room. His eyes do an inventory. "You'll learn, officer," he says, quiet enough that the aquarium won't hear. The fastest path is usually the kindest. Depends on who's holding the map, I say. He tips his head like a man measuring a doorway. We're on the same side, he says. Then you don't mind waiting, I say. He turns away, but not before I see it. A small smudge on his cuff, dark and oily, the shape of a thumb pressed hard against something metal and dirty. The kind of print you get when you force a sliding door on a cold rail car. I swallow the taste of iron in the back of my mouth and step to the doorway of Nora's room once more. She's awake. No, not awake, aware. Her finger, small and nicked, is tracing invisible lines across the air from the dipper's rim to the single point we've promised won't move. Polaris, she whispers, barely, to no one and to me. Polaris, I answer, equally soft. Monica taps my elbow. Judge's clerk on line 2, she says, and the on-call DCS manager, Milton's boss, on line 3. Let's go, I say. Behind us, the door to the stairwell opens and a gust of snow spirals in around a uniform with a transit patch and a tired face. Lieutenant Harris lifts a gloved hand, searching my eyes like a man looking for a North Star inside a building. Officer McCray? He asks. Right here, I say. And for a second it feels like the room has its own map. Judge, nurse, social worker, transit cop, and a little girl with a star pinned to a bear. If we line them up just right, they might point somewhere true. Milton's phone vibrates on the counter. He reaches for it with that same composed hand. Whatever's on the other end of that vibration will either open a door or slam one. Answer it, I tell him, my voice steady, and put it on speaker. Milton's practiced smile barely moves as he answers the call. He taps speaker. A woman's voice fills the hall, clipped and alert, like coffee at midnight. Mr. Milton, this is Angela Soto, on-call DCS manager. I'm also on with Officer McCray and the hospital social worker per their patch. Monica lifts a hand. Present, I add. Flag, PD, Officer McCray. Good, Soto says. Craig, you do not have authority to remove a child from a hospital against medical advice without coordination and documentation of imminent danger. We have neither. Stand down and wait for verification. Milton's mouth thins. Angela, the statute is not a mask, Soto says evenly. We do not use emergency removal to tidy optics. Where is your court number? Silence. Exactly, Soto says. Officer, the agency is not requesting custody tonight. The child remains under medical care. We will assign a worker who is not in Mr. Milton's chain. I'm opening a critical incident review regarding winter placements and will expect your report. Copy, I say. We'll keep Nora safe. A second line beeps into my phone. The judge's clerk. Monica hits the wall phone and we three huddle under its coiled cord like conspirators at a payphone. This is Chambers, a younger voice says, words softened by altitude. Judge Pritchard authorizes a temporary protective order for the minor, known as Nora. The order prohibits removal without law enforcement sign-off and DCS management approval. We'll email the signed PDF in 5. Officer, you'll also have telephonic authority for a limited search of records at the Canyon Yard office. Scope? I ask. Any calendar, schedule, sign-in, key log, storage inventory, and surveillance relevant to the care, custody, or confinement of minors, he reads. Time bounded to the last 60 days. I can work with that, I say. Record your notes and bring us hard copies by morning, he adds, voice gentling. And officer, good catch. The line clicks. My pulse settles a notch. When I turn, Milton's looking at the fish as if toxic spines might offer counsel. He pockets his phone with the small economy of a man not used to being told no. You heard, I say. I heard politics, he answers, pleasant again. But I'm a patient man. Be patient over there, Monica says, and the security guard, bless him, drifts into his eye line like gravity. Lieutenant Harris steps beside me, snow beating on his jacket like crushed glass. Up close, he smells like diesel and winter. Judge gave you a yard warrant? He asks. Records, Keys, video, I say. No people. We'll see what the records tell, he says. If there's exigency, we expand. Elise appears at my elbow with a printed packet. Vitals, trending. Lab times, a small note in the corner in tidy pen. She says, Polaris, when calm. If you go, she murmurs, eyes flicking toward Nora's room, I'll keep the sky on. And, officer, she swallows. If you see a room, small, marks up a wall like pencil lines at a doorway, please photograph them. Elaine she marked Nora's height every winter star party. I think she'd have done it wherever they put her. My throat tightens. We'll look, I say, and we'll bring it back. Eleanor Pike arrives in a storm of wool and purpose, gray hair pinned like a question mark straightened. She shakes off Snow in the vestibule, glances once at Milton, and walks past him as if he's a painting not to her taste. Officer McCray, she says, and takes my hand with the firm, brief grip of someone who doesn't audition for trust. Attorney Kent is on the way. He'll sit with DCS for the Protective Order Service. You go where you need to go. Harris checks his watch. Canyon Yard is 6 minutes if the plows got to Route 66, he says. We'll take my unit. I look in on Nora before we go. The room is dim, the projector's sky a soft, breathing dome. The bear sits against her shoulder, Polaris catching the pulse in her neck. Her eyes are open. She watches me like I'm a door that can either slam or hold. I crouch. I have to check a place, I say, keeping my words slow, but I'll come back to you. Elise will stay. The stars will stay. Her mouth moves, one syllable like a fragile bead on a string. Stay. I will, I whisper. Count by stars with Elise. Big Dipper to Polaris. When you get there, I'll be in the hallway again. Her fingertips brush the pin. It's consent and blessing and the smallest prayer. Harris and I clatter into the stairwell, boots ringing on concrete. The outside door huffs us into a night that feels older than the town. Snow slanting, peaks ghosting the horizon, the red eye of a signal down the line. We climb into his Tahoe. The heater coughs warm air that smells faintly of rubber and map books. Canyon Yard? He asks. Canyon Yard, I say. We slide down Beaver, hit Route 66, pass a shuttered diner with a neon mug steaming against the dark. BNSF cars sit hunched like bison along the tracks, graffiti bright even under snow. Harris turns onto a plowed lane with a sign, Authorized Personnel Only. The yard office squats ahead, low and square, orange sodium lights painting the snow the color of old paper. We kill the siren. Harris shows his badge to the night guard. Young, red ears, an Adam's apple that bobs when he swallows. Transit police, Harris says. We're here with a telephonic warrant for records. The kid looks relieved. He's the kind who doesn't like making decisions. He buzzes us through and stares at our boots like they might write the report for him. Inside, the air is warmer than I want. Stale coffee and solvent. A vending machine hums. A TV mutters weather to itself. A clipboard lies on the counter. Laminated schedules underneath. A wall calendar shows a December with several days circled. Not birthdays, not holidays. Red ink, white snow, black type. Warrant scope, Harris says quietly. I read it to him. He nods toward an office door stenciled Foreman. That's where the good lies live. We push in. The room is clean in the way that men clean. Clear surfaces, drawers that stick, a plant dead in a cup. On the wall above a short filing cabinet hangs a whiteboard calendar with magnetic strips labeled with numbers and letters that don't mean days. Each strip is offset, not by the usual grid, but as if it were telling someone where and when to slide something on a track. You seeing this? I ask. Harris steps closer. Not a calendar. A rotation, he says. Yard assignments, or something else. The color coding's wrong for crews. I read the top strip. OBT. OBS. 5. N. OBS could be observatory. OBT, Old Bridge. The letters mean nothing until they do. Another strip, CCS, CL, 2, S, CCS, Coconino Children's, or Canyon Car Storage. I take a photo with the department phone, every line, every magnet, every smudge. Harris opens the file cabinet. He finds a ledger with carbon copies. Sign-ins, time, name, vehicle. Several with the same hand-signing Craig M. when the foreman line is blank. Foreman's out tonight, Harris says, scanning, but Milton's been here after midnight more than once. I try the next drawer. Keys. Hundreds of them, each with a punch tag. I photograph the drawer before touching anything. Harris dons gloves, lifts one cluster. Store A, Store B, Store C. Storage, I say. My mouth tastes like penny and wind. Where? The guard from the lobby hovers in the doorway, nervous but watching. Those labels used to be for old parts closets, he says. They converted some to utility. Foreman keeps the map. The map? Harris asks. The kid points to a corkboard with a yard layout pinned under a sheet protector. Harris peels the plastic back. Here, he says, tapping rectangles. Store A, a box near the east spur. Store B, closer. Store C, by the maintenance shed. Store D, inside the fence, no exterior window. Someone's penciled small marks along the interior wall of Store D, like little hatch marks you'd make as a joke. Except jokes don't have dates beside them. I take more photos. Slow, methodical. The marks climb in uneven inches, tiny notches with numbers beside them. 5, 5 1/4, 5 1/2. Harris meets my eyes. We don't say the word height. We don't have to. Keys, Harris says, low. Store D. He drops a cluster into my palm. The metal is cold enough to burn through glove leather. We click through the ring until we find the one stamped Store D. The guard leads, jittery in his cheap boots, along a corridor that smells of grease. A radio somewhere plays a song about trucks. Snow hisses against the loading dock like someone whispering outside a door. We stop at a steel door with a sliding hasp and a numbered lock. The number matches the tag on our key. I glance at Harris. He nods, body angled so the camera on his chest catches everything. I fit the key. The metal turns with the reluctant, gritty give of a lock used too often by the same hand. The door opens 6 inches and stops against a chain drawn through an eye bolt and back to the frame. The chain has a small padlock of its own, newer than the door. Harris exhales. "Telephonic warrant covers this," he says, almost to himself, and I hear the careful line we're walking. I slide my phone under the gap and snap a photo. The flash stumbles over a room the size of a walk-in closet. A metal chair, a plastic crate with a blanket rolled tight as a log, a dented water jug, and on the far wall, pencil marks. Small, dark, climbing, and above them, taped at a child's eye line, a glossy magazine page of the Big Dipper with a circle drawn around a star and the word home in a child's hand. The sound that comes out of me is not language. Harris lifts his radio. "Chambers," he says, voice contained. "We have an exigent hazard. We're expanding to entry." The judge's clerk answers fast. "Authorized. Entry and seizure of any evidence of unlawful confinement. Officer's safety first." "Copy," Harris says and looks at me. I nod. He snaps the chain with a small bolt cutter from his belt, a sound like the hospital supply closet lock, and I flinch for a second for the girl asleep under another sky. The door swings wide. Cold air pours out that smells like plastic and fear. I photograph everything. Chair, crate, jug, the marks at 5 feet and under, the taped constellation. And then I see it, wedged into the crack between the baseboard and the wall, a small enamel point winking like a tooth. I crouch and ease it out with a gloved fingernail. It's the twin of the Polaris pin on Nora's bear, except this one is bent. one point blunted where it must have been pried under metal. I lift it into the beam of my flashlight. The north arrow catches and throws a thin line of light across the ugly room. On the back, in black marker faded by fingers, 2 letters. E.B. Elaine Bennett, I breathe. The radio on Harris's shoulder crackles. Monica's voice, tight. "Officer, Milton just stepped outside to take a call. Elise says Nora woke at the lock sound in the hall. She's panicking. We're calming her. But he's moving." Harris and I trade a look that says 2 directions at once. We photograph the last corner, bag the bent pin, and pull the door closed behind us, the chain dangling like a sentence unfinished. "Go," Harris says. "I'll hold the yard and call in CSU. You get back to your North Star." I run, keys clapping, snow needling my face, the Polaris pin burning against my palm like it knows the way. Harris's Tahoe fishtails once on the hospital ramp and corrects like it's done it 100 times for mothers in labor and patrolmen with bad news. I'm out before he stops, boots skidding, the automatic doors coughing warm air against a face I can't feel. My hand is clamped around the evidence bag like a talisman. Inside it, the bent Polaris pin flashes and goes dull with each breath. The floor outside Nora's room is calmer than Monica's voice sounded on the radio, but you can feel the tremor under the hospital hum. Milton is not in sight. Security has shifted. 1 at the far end by the elevators, 1 near the waiting room fish. Monica meets me halfway, her hair pulled back like a decision. "Where is he?" I ask. "Stairwell phone call," she says. Then he tried to re-enter, but the guard needed a badge swipe. He showed his, but I told them to hold. Angela Soto sent an email to the front desk with a "do not remove" instruction. "Good," I say, and then lower my voice. "We found a room, Monica, in the yard, closet-sized, chain lock, crate rolled like a bed, pencil hatch marks with heights, Big Dipper taped at a child's eye line, and this." I lift the bag. The small star spins to show its back. 2 letters ghosted in marker. E.B. Monica's face doesn't change so much as sharpen. "Elaine Bennett." "Elise said the outreach pins were Elaine's," I say. "This one looks like it was wedged under a baseboard." "We have to get this to the judge," she says. "And DCS. En route," Eleanor Pike says from behind us, voice like iron wrapped in wool. She's with a man in a navy suit and rumpled scarf, Attorney Kent. He nods to me and takes the bag with gloved hands like it's a cross and a match and a map at once. "Chain of custody?" he asks. "Bagged on site," I say. "Transit PD CSU en route to the yard. Clerk authorized exigent entry. Photos and body cam running." Kent meets my eyes long enough to note whether I'm the sort of cop who edits truth to make it neater. He seems satisfied and turns to Eleanor. "This will get us emergency relief with teeth," he says, "and a preservation order for every camera in that yard." Eleanor inclines her head, not triumph but a quiet reckoning. "Where is the child?" "Room 12, Monica says. "Nurse Elise is with her." "Let's go," Eleanor says. We step into the doorway and the world shrinks in the way good rooms do when a child is the center. The projector has reset to a field of winter stars. Elise sits on a low stool, shoulders rounded, counting in a whisper that matches the monitor's beep. "Pointer 1, pointer 2, she says, then lifts her hand to the small bright point on the ceiling. "Polaris." Nora is upright on pillows, eyes glossy from recent panic, chest still hitching a fraction too fast. The bear is tucked under her elbow. The pin on its ear pricks a clean glint with each breath. When she sees me, her shoulders lower a hair. When she sees Eleanor, something else happens. A question. Then a weary kind of relief that belongs to children who have memorized adults' faces the way other kids memorize planets. "Hi, Nora," Eleanor says, kneeling like her knees know the choreography of a hospital floors. "I'm Eleanor. I help people make sure kids get to stay safe." Nora watches her without blinking. Elise looks at me. "She woke when a door down the hall clicked," she says. We breathed through it. I set the ceiling back to familiar. I show Elise the evidence bag close to my chest so Nora sees only that I'm holding something small and bright. Elise's eyes widen, meaning absorbed without spilling. "You found it," she breathes. I keep my tone low. "In a storage room at the yard. Marks on the wall with heights." I angle the bag so Elise can see the ghosted letters without making a ceremony of it. E.B. Elise's mouth presses shut. Tears threaten, then reconsider. "Elaine," she says, barely air. She turns back to Nora, the nurse face back in place. "We're finding the way, kiddo." The door behind us bumps and a well-dressed man's apology arrives before his body does. Milton, smoothing his collar back into place, smile refreshed from a pocket. He stops when he sees Eleanor and Kent. That's a tell. He shifts his weight so his boots are on polished tile, not rubber matting. Another tell, a man calculating how to stand like consequence doesn't stick. "Mr. Milton," Eleanor says, voice cool, "you've met our line in the sand." "Ms. Pike," he returns, almost amused. "Always a pleasure to see philanthropy working late." "Philanthropy's a bridge," she says. "Tonight, it's holding a court order. Kent?" Kent produces his phone. "Protective order in hand," he says. "Signed and emailed. You've been copied, Mr. Milton." Milton's eyes flick where they shouldn't, to the bag in my hand. It's a micro-expression, faster than greed, closer to recognition. Not for the star, but for the 2 letters on the back. His smile never breaks, but the muscles down his jaw jump. "You're waving trinkets," he says lightly. "I'm here for the child." "No," I say, a word without adornment. "You're here for a narrative. We're here for Nora." He lets the smallest beat pass, calculating if there's another path. He settles on concern. "Officer, none of this changes the fact that we need placement." "Correct," Monica says, stepping between him and the bed. "And it will be handled above your pay grade. Ms. Soto is assigning a worker from outside your unit." He angles to Elise, softening his tone. "Nurse, I appreciate your care. If you could pack the child's things, this is the child's thing," Elise says, steady, touching the bear's ragged ear. "Everything else can wait." He sets his smile down like a cup he doesn't want anymore. "You're making this adversarial," he says. "It doesn't have to be. Rooms with chains are adversarial," I say before I can help it. His eyes flick back to me. "You've been somewhere you shouldn't." "Telephonic warrant," I say. "You'll have a copy by morning, along with photos." There's a small sound from the bed. Not a word. A lean. Nora's hand is reaching into the air, fingers winnowing like she's feeling for a line between stars that adults can't see. She touches the bear's ear, and she looks at Milton the way kids look at thunderstorms, calculating distance with the count between flash and sound. "Polaris," she whispers, not to him. He turns to go, and on his way out, he does exactly what I hoped he would. He glances at the family waiting area as if double-checking if someone is there. The someone is a woman with a swinging tote and wet hair, mid-30s, face pinched with concern. She stands when he nods and starts toward us like she belongs. It's too clean. My hackles rise. "Ms. Pike," Milton says, smooth again. "This is our licensed foster, on call for emergency placements." Kent raises a hand. "No," he says, not unkind, as if he's explaining the ocean to someone who doesn't live near it. "Not tonight. No affiliates from Mr. Milton's network." The woman hesitates, looks from Milton to Nora, to the pins on our chests, feels the math she can't solve, and peels back toward a vending machine like she's just remembered she needed water. Eleanor turns her head barely toward me. "If Milton bounces," she says, "he heads to the yard, or to wherever the ledger lives that tells him who drove which van on which night. Can you give me 1 more hour?" "Yes," I say, too fast. "But I won't leave her again until she's sleeping easy." I step to the bedside and put my palm near Nora's, not touching until she closes the distance. She does. Tiny, dry hand under mine, heat building like a timid sun. Elise perks, hearing the count in my voice. Big Dipper, she prompts. We trace the line, pointer star to pointer star, and I am surprised by the sudden ache that rises when we hit the Little Dipper's end, the star that doesn't run. I think of the height marks in pencil. I think of Elaine's careful, almost printed letters on the back of that bent pin, and the way she must have pressed it under metal knowing she didn't have time to write anything else. Nora's breathing evens. Her eyelids drop, rise, drop again. Then, without opening them, she speaks into the small cove of our joined hands. Mom? Locked. The room holds its breath. Elise barely nods at me. Permission to be more than a witness. Nora, I say, with a voice I use on cliffs. Do you know where? Her brow creases like a map folding. Dark. A small flinch skitters across her shoulders, like a body memory firing. Train. Noise. Cold. He says, temporary. Monica's pen materializes. We heard it, she says softly. We'll carry it. Nora's eyes open and fix on me. No. More clicks, she whispers, urgent, and her little fingers press my palm with a rhythm that's not random. Too quick, one slow, too quick, as if she's repeating the shape of a sound. Elise's eyes widen. Track ratchets, she whispers. The slider. I squeeze back the same pattern. Got it, I breathe. The door cracks and the security guard whispers, Officer? Lieutenant Harris on 1. CSU pulled video from the yard. You'll want to see this. I look at Nora, at Elise, at Eleanor, at the small stubborn star on the bear. I'll be in the hall, I tell the child. I'll come back before the Dipper empties. Nora nods, a tiny, solemn, promise-making nod that has more weight than some vows I've sworn in court. In the corridor, Harris's voice is a tight wire. Body cam's a mess in that storage hall, but the yard camera caught Milton's Suburban at 2318 most nights with a quick unload at Store D. And Julia, there's a second door, not on the map. The camera catches a flash of a knit hat with white constellations when it opens. Then nothing. Elaine, I breathe. We'll freeze frames, he says. But there's more. The whiteboard you shot? We overlaid it with train timetables. It's not just a calendar. It's a cipher. First letters match siding names. Numbers match crate counts. OBS is Observatory. CCS is the hospital. OBT, Old Bridge Tunnel. N and S are north and south. Someone built a whole system to hide in plain sight. I feel a sound behind me more than I hear it. A click, soft as a breath, over by the stairwell. The same metal-on-metal sound that made Nora's body bolt. Milton stands there, hand on the door bar, his face arranged to look surprised enough to be plausible and not so surprised that it reads as guilt. He meets my eyes and sees what's in them, and for a fraction of a second, he drops the mask. It's not rage that shows. It's irritation. The kind a man feels when a machine he counted on finally stutters. His gaze flicks to the evidence bag, to Eleanor, to the hall camera, and then he turns back to the bar. Don't, I say, low. He smiles to himself, presses lightly, lets the door sigh shut without clicking. In room 12, under a field of borrowed stars, a small hand taps the bear's ear, too quick, one slow, too quick, and I realize she's not only remembering a sound, she's giving me a code. Harris and I huddle over the nurse's station computer while Kent forwards the signed orders to every inbox with a badge. The freeze frame from the yard camera is lousy, snow slashed across the lens, but the shape by the second door wears a knit hat stitched with white constellations. You don't forget patterns like that when you've stood under artificial stars and watched a 6-year-old breathe by finding Polaris. Old Bridge Tunnel, Harris says, tapping the whiteboard photo on my phone. OBT, North Entry. Numbers match crate counts. The rotation puts a mark there tonight, an hour from now. Transit jurisdiction? I ask. Half us, half city, he says. But the tunnel's decommissioned. Foreman uses the north vestibule for storage during storms. You could hide a bad decade in there. Eleanor leans in, reading the same fear we are. If there's a human being in that tunnel, we don't wait for perfect paperwork. Exigency covers life, Harris says, but we'll still call it in. I glance toward room 12. Elise has lowered her stool so her eye line meets Nora's without a bend. She's teaching the beat again. 2 quick, 1 slow, 2 quick. The pattern of a ratchet. A sound a small body memorizes when light is rationed. I step in. Nora, I need to ask something, I say, careful. OBT. I shape the letters with my mouth like they're for a first reader. Old Bridge Tunnel. Did you ever go there? Her eyes shift left the way kids do when they're reaching for a picture on a high shelf. She lifts her hand and taps the pattern on the bear's ear again. 2 quick, 1 slow, 2 quick, then points, very slightly toward the window where the storm is a wall. North, Elise whispers, catching the tilt. She pulls a laminated hospital map off a clipboard and lays it where Nora can see. Not our map, but the idea of one. North is the top. Nora's finger floats to the top edge, then stops and presses twice. Once, twice. 2 quick, 1 slow, 2 quick. Adores language, taught by a man who thought temporary was a lullaby. Okay, I say, my voice a knotted rope I can climb. We understand. We're going. Eleanor takes my elbow. Take a medic bag, she says, and a bolt cutter. I'm not waiting for a foreman who sleeps through children. Kent hands me a folded paper. Emergency aid carve-out, he says. If you meet resistance from a bad faith actor, this won't keep you from catching a charge, but it will give the city something to hold when we explain why we broke a lock. Monica steps close. I'll stay with Nora, she says. If Mr. Milton breathes on this hallway, I'll file a complaint under my own name. Milton is a shape at the edge of the waiting room that pretends it isn't watching. His hands are empty. His eyes are not. He takes out his phone and points it at a painting instead of a person because he's read the HR manual. I make a note in my head anyway. Tall, rail dust on soles, cuff stain, constellation hat on a camera, a man whose job is to move people like crates and whose language is placement, said like mercy. Let's move, Harris says. We take the stairs 2 at a time. The storm needles our faces as the automatic doors cough us back into winter. Harris's radio ticks off units. 2 transit officers converging from the south, 1 city car coming up from Walnut. He kills the lights until we clear the neighborhood and then bumps the bar once so the plows will get out of our way. Route 66 is a ribbon of black glass between banks of snow. The San Francisco peaks loom and disappear as the squall thickens and thins like breath under a blanket. We pass a diner with a chalkboard sign that promises pie like moms to no one awake to read it. We hook north at a spur road pocked by old flood repairs and drop into a ravine where the skeleton of an old bridge hides in the throat of the hill. OBT, Harris says, pointing through the windshield. North Portal, decommissioned after a washout 15 years ago. The yard built a vestibule at the mouth to store salvage. We nose off onto a plowed pullout that pretends to be a lot. 2 transit officers in black watch caps jog up, breath thick in the air. A 3rd unit idles down valley to catch any car that tries to slip out the maintenance lane. Harris hands me a spare radio. We keep this tight, he says. Lights minimal. We listen first. The tunnel mouth hunches like a giant's broken tooth in the hillside, concrete staining the snow with old rust. A corrugated vestibule has been grafted onto it, newer steel, fresh padlock scarred by use. Snow has piled in eddies along the seams. The wind finds the metal and hums a low, lonely note. Harris shines a thin flashlight beam at the lock, not the kind that announces you to bad men with good aim, just enough to read the hardware. Foreman's key would fit that, he says. We didn't bring it. Bolt cutter? I ask. He nods, passes me the tool. I don't rush. I press my ear to the metal and let the cold bleed the hospital heat out of my skin. At first, there's nothing but wind and the faint ring of distant traffic. And then, if you let quiet settle long enough, there it is. 2 quick clicks, 1 slow grind, 2 quick clicks. Not loud, not theatrical. The unobtrusive sound of a ratchet being moved by someone who doesn't want to be heard. I pull back like I've touched a nerve. "She's in there," I say. Harris keys his radio, voice low. "Sound inside OBT North Vestibule consistent with movement on Rache hardware. Possible occupant. Commencing emergency entry under life safety." "Copy," dispatch answers, tinny with distance. Harris and I count together without speaking. 3, 2. I slip the cutter's jaws over the lock and lean. It pops with the small, ugly sound that made a little girl hide in a Mylar blanket hours ago. I flinch, then breathe through it. The hasp swings. The door gives an inch and sticks on snow. We shoulder it open. Cold breathes from the vestibule, thick with the smell of damp wood and steel and old oil. A single battery lantern glows on a crate, the kind you buy at a big box store when a power outage makes you feel suddenly irresponsible. The space is bigger than Store D, but only just. 10 feet by 8, with a second door deeper in, the kind with a steel slider on a toothed track. The slider's teeth are polished where fingers have found them often. "Hello?" I call, voice not cop loud, just human. "This is Officer McCray with Transit Police. We're here to help. We're coming in. No one's going to hurt you." There's a pause, then the soft scrape of something set down carefully. A woman's voice, hoarse with cold and disuse, edges through the door seam. "Don't bang the lock. She'll wake up screaming." I swallow my heart back to where it belongs. "Elaine?" I ask. Silence at first, then, "Who?" "Julia," I say. "Flagstaff PD, with Transit Lieutenant Harris. Your nurse friend Elise sent us. Nora's safe at Coconino Children's." The sound the woman makes is not pretty. Relief rarely is. It's a choked little laugh that breaks on the second note, followed by a deliberate swallow. Do you have heat?" "We have blankets and a rig a quarter-mile out," Harris says. "And a hospital." "Okay," she says, like she's not convinced the word still has meaning. "The slider sticks. 3 teeth up, 2 down. Don't force it." I check the mechanism. She's right. The rail is old and pitted, but someone has greased the teeth recently. I put my fingers where I know Nora's small hands must have been and move the lock as instructed. 3 clicks up, 2 down. The pattern Nora tapped into my palm. The steel slides. The second door groans. Light spills into the narrow space beyond. She's smaller than I expect because mothers are large in a child's memory. 30-something, hair matted under that knit hat, constellations dirty but bright. Her lips are cracked. Her eyes are not. They take me in the way nurses and soldiers do. Fast, full, accounting. She's wrapped in an old work coat that doesn't belong to her. The pocket bulges where a notebook has swelled with damp. Behind her, against the inner tunnel wall, someone has taped the same Big Dipper page at eye line. Beneath it, pencil marks climb. The highest reads 5¾ in a shaking hand. "Elaine Bennett," she says. Like a test. "Yes," I answer. "Elaine Bennett, mother of Nora." She closes her eyes, just once. "She still has her pin?" she asks. "She does," I say. "It's on a bear's ear." The corner of her mouth twitches. "Good," she whispers, and then her knees unlock because adrenaline is a trickster and the body waits until you can be caught to decide to fall. I catch her. Harris takes the other side. The transit officers roll the blankets around her in a practiced burrito that leaves face and airway clear. She clutches a small enamel star in her fist, the twin of the one we found. This one bent and rebent until the points are dull, the north arrow nicked. "I left one under the baseboard," she says without opening her eyes, "in case someone good came and had to prove I existed." "You exist," I say, handing her a heat pack. "Your daughter said Polaris like it was oxygen." "Polaris," she repeats, more breath than sound. "Any others?" Harris asks, scanning the space. Elaine shakes her head. "They moved them. Nights, different places. I stayed when I could. I hid when I couldn't. He calls it temporary observation, like a weather hold. It's storage." She swallows. "Is he here?" "Milton's at the hospital," I say, "and he's not touching Nora." She nods, then lifts a shaking hand. "Shelf, behind the lantern," she says. "Ledger. Not theirs, mine." I find it. A spiral-bound notebook, edges chewed by damp, pages packed with small, careful print. Dates, initials, times, short notes in a nurse's hand. Store D, 2318, chain, OBTN, 0105, slider sticks. Van S12, crate sound, girl 7. Under each, a tiny drawn dipper and a dot circled where Polaris would be. North, proof against someone losing her notes. I slide it into an evidence bag. "We'll copy, keep one with you for testimony," I say. "Elaine, I need to ask, did Milton ever touch you? Did he—" She shakes her head. "Not his flavor," she says, voice bitter and low. "He outsources. He keeps hands clean and contracts dirty." Harris's radio crackles. "Units on the south end see a dark SUV paused at the maintenance lane," a transit officer reports. "It rolled when we lit it up. Plate matches Milton's Suburban. He's headed east on 66. "Copy," Harris says. He meets my eyes. He knows we've opened his closet. He'll either run home to shred paper or circle back to check his prize. His prize is at the hospital under a court order and a woman with a checkbook bigger than his budget, I say. He's going to try something, but he won't do it with his own hands. Elaine's fingers twitch against the blanket. 2 quick taps, 1 slow, 2 quick. The code she taught her daughter to find, help without words. "Let's go get you to Nora," I say. We lift her, careful, and move through the vestibule into air that stings and heals at once. Snow takes our heat like a tax. The Tahoe idles like a patient animal. Behind us, the tunnel sighs as if it knows we've stolen something back from it. Halfway up the path, Elaine draws in a sharp breath and points. A flake of black against snow near the door. A button. Plain, metal, cheap. I scoop it up. It's stamped with a serial number, not a brand. Harris frowns. "Door maintenance," he says. "Or crate hardware. We'll match it." He bags it. Every small thing a future lever. We bundle Elaine into the back, crank heat, and radio the hospital. Inbound adult female, hypothermia risk, conscious, oriented, possible dehydration, probable soft tissue bruising, will need protective detail at the door. Monica answers. "We'll be ready." Nora's breathing steady. Elise kept the stars on. Eleanor adds a second later, steel beneath silk. And Mr. Milton has just left the building. I watch the snow blow across the windshield like static, like an old TV deciding whether to show picture or noise. My hand strays to the evidence bag with the bent pin inside and lands on Elaine's fingers instead. She squeezes once in that same code, 2 quick, 1 slow, 2 quick, and I squeeze back. We hit the hospital turn and Harris kills the siren so the click of the ER doors won't feel like a thunderclap. As we roll in, a figure slips across the far lot, head down against the wind. For a blink, the halogen throws a constellation onto a knit hat, then it's gone behind a parked Suburban. The ER bay doors part without the clack of a latch. Harris warned the nurse at intake to hold the mechanism, to let the door breathe instead of click. Small mercies matter when fear keeps a private dictionary. We ease Elaine in under a blanket warmed to desert heat. The knit hat with its white constellations looks like a night sky that's been slept on for days. Monica meets us with a wheelchair and a look that folds 9,000 hospital nights into one clear decision. "Room 12, she says, voice soft. We've kept the hallway quiet. Security posted by the fire doors so nobody tests a latch. Eleanor and Kent flank the gurney, matching pace to our brisk walk. trading phone calls into their sleeves like fencers passing blades. "I've emailed Angela Soto the ledger pages you photographed at Store D," Kent says to me without greeting. "Transit CSU is already mirroring the yard's DVR. Judge Pritchard is awake, caffeinated, and curious." "Curious judges are my favorite kind," Eleanor murmurs. "I've also texted the county attorney. She'll put a hold on Milton's travel if we get probable cause to charge." We push through a curtain of forced warm air that never feels like real heat and drift back into the pediatric wing where the projector sky is still on, winter stars pulsing across ceiling tiles. Elise looks up from her low stool. The sight of Elaine knocks the balance out of her face for a second. Then the nurse is back, professional, gentle, no wasted motion. "Hi," she whispers to Elaine, eyes shining. "We're going to go slow, okay? Nora's calm. We'll name every sound before it happens." Elaine nods, a dry swallow, both hands under the blanket, clutching nothing and everything. "Don't let a door click," she says. "The slider sound makes her—" "We won't," Elise answers. She turns to me. "Officer, can we scrub the fire door alarm for 10 minutes? Security hold the bar with a gloved hand if anyone needs to pass." "Already done," the guard at the corner says, palm pressed to metal like a man steadying a sail. Harris falls back to the nurse's station to work the radios. Kent peels off to meet a courier bringing a portable scanner. Paper will not be allowed to evaporate between the yard and the courthouse. Eleanor takes up a quiet position against the wall like a slim column that can hold a roof if it must. Monica kneels by Elaine and speaks the plan like a lullaby. "Nora is awake. Elise will say your name before you cross the door line. No sudden motion. If the scissors need to cut anything, we'll warn her first. We call the light by name before we dim it, and we breathe together if she catches." Elaine glances at me, eyes a fiercer blue than her voice. "Does she still have the bear?" "She does," I say. Polaris rides on its ear. Her mouth breaks, but she doesn't cry. Some mothers save tears for when the door shuts and the nurses go off shift. My phone buzzes. Angela Soto. I put it on speaker low against my chest, quiet enough that the adults hear and Nora does not. "Officer McCray," Angela says, voice clear. "I'm upstairs with hospital counsel. I can issue a protective hold within DCS authority that mirrors the judge's order. I'm suspending Mr. Milton pending investigation. I also need an affidavit from your nurse. Elise, yes, regarding the Winter Star programs and the pin's provenance. It connects the child to the mother without fingerprints or paperwork." "Done," Eleanor says, already texting Elise's full name into a thing that eats red tape for breakfast. "One more," Angela adds. Unknown caller left a message for the on-call line claiming to be a licensed foster on standby for Ms. Pike's cases, ready to assist. We are not to release the child to anyone from Milton's network. We'll pick a placement only after a multidisciplinary staffing. If the mother is medically stable, we'll prioritize reunification once safety conditions are met. "Copy," I say. "We'll hand you a ledger, a bent pin, a storage cell, and a mother with a map in her head. Please bring a good worker, not a badge with a smile." "I'm bringing one of mine," Angela says. "Marta Diaz. She lost her brother to a system like this in another state. She eats men like Milton for moral lunch." The line clicks. I breathe. 2 transit officers hustle in with a gray evidence tote. Harris nods them past without breaking his own phone call. "Yes, Chief?" he says into the receiver. "No, sir, this is not a rumor. I have photographs. We'll need a joint press line in the morning. Tonight, we need a locksmith and a guard at the yard. Yes, sir, we'll interview the foreman when he arrives at Eero 400. Milton is not in sight. The station clerk says he left 10 minutes ago, head down in the weather, to a Suburban that had the look of a thing the bank owns more than the man does. Good. I step to the threshold of room 12 and crouch to Nora's level. "Hey, kid," I say, keeping my voice in that slow metronome I've used all night. "We changed one thing. A person is here. She'll say her name in a second so your brain can put the sound in the right place." I glance at Elise. "Ready?" Elise clicks the projector's brightness down one notch so faces soften. She never moves without naming it. Light dim, she whispers. Still stars. She catches Nora's eyes and holds them the way good clinicians hold a vein, without losing sight of the bigger body. There's someone who loves you here. Her name is Elaine. She sometimes wears a hat with stars, but you don't have to like hats right now. You get to decide who's close. Nora's eyes flicker, not panic, a calculation. The bear under her elbow tips, the tiny 5-pointed star on its ear catching the ceiling's glow. She touches it with one finger, 2 quick, 1 slow, 2 quick, and breathes in. Polaris, she says. Polaris, Elise echoes. Monica positions the wheelchair just outside the door line. We'll roll half a foot, she says, voice low. No clicks. Elaine's hands grip the armrest so hard the bones go stovepipe white. Okay, she whispers to no one and to God. Okay. We push. 6 inches. Nora watches the threshold like it used to bite her and she studied its teeth. Elaine stops. Julia, she says, caught between collapse and flight. Say it again. Nora, I say. This is Elaine. This is your mother. The words hang in the warm air like a flag unrolled in a dead wind. Nora's gaze snaps from the bear to the doorway. You can feel electricity change direction in a room. People who live with fear learn to ride it. Elise places her palm on the mattress, open, grounded. Say it back if you want, she tells Nora, or just listen. Nora's brow furrows as if she's doing math without paper. She swallows, looks at the hat, the face beneath it, the mouth that shapes her name like prayer. The memory of the slider noise scuffs across the hall, a nurse bumping a cart, gentle, warned in advance, and Nora startles, then rides it. She taps the bear's ear, 2 quick, 1 slow, 2 quick, and lifts her eyes to the woman in the chair. Mom, she whispers, a word so soft the projector has to catch it. Elaine folds over like a hinge. Elise is there, a hand to a shoulder so a mother doesn't fall out of a chair. No one touches Nora without her eyes on their hands. We have learned. We learn fast when love is the teacher and terror the proctor. Behind me, Eleanor exhales a breath she's held for 20 minutes and 50 years. Kent looks away because lawyers aren't paid to cry. Harris watches the hallway camera and the door at once, thin-mouthed and ready for the one man who thinks he owns clocks. I give it 5 seconds because a person needs 5 to convince her body she is not a ghost in the doorway. Then I step back into the hall with Harris to carve a legal path behind the human one. Foreman? I ask. On the way, he says, with counsel. CSU found something else. A payment spreadsheet on a flash drive in the foreman's desk. Names redacted by initials. Dates line up with your whiteboard cipher. Milton's ID badge pinged the yard doors on 10 of those nights. County attorney, I ask. Harris taps his earpiece. Drafting warrant apps now. Unlawful imprisonment, endangerment, fraud, evidence tampering. We arrest the foreman when he shows. We bring Milton in after the judge signs. We might need to serve at dawn. Eleanor is already 2 moves ahead. I'll have a victim advocate at their arraignment before breakfast, she says. Monica, when Marta arrives from DCS, we'll need a quiet room for a staff with Elisa's affidavit and Julia's timeline. Monica nods, scribbling on a clipboard. Room 9, the one without the rattly latch. At the far end of the corridor, the elevator dings. Soft, not the metallic bite that makes Nora jump. Elise had facilities pad that plate with felt. Still, the doors whisper apart and 3 men step out. 2 in transit blues I know, and 1 in a brown canvas jacket. Duck-billed cap low against the snow. He walks like a yard boss who expects lights to change for him. His cuffs are oily. His knuckles are skinned. He glances at the room numbers like they owe him an answer. Foreman, Harris says, stepping forward. The man looks up, and seeing 3 badges instead of 1 gives a practiced smile that's never found a face it could live in. Evening, he says. In room 12, under a ceiling thick with borrowed stars, a little girl reaches a hand toward a mother she half remembers, and the doorframe between them holds its breath. He stops where the hallway narrows, canvas jacket shedding melted snow onto the tile. Up close, he smells like diesel and old coffee. The name patch over his pocket reads Harker. The guard near the fire door shifts his weight. Elisa's voice drifts from room 12 in a soft circle. Pointer 1, pointer 2, still stars. Roy Harker? Harris says, badge level, voice even. Transit police, we need to talk. Harker's eyes flick down the hall, clocking uniform, suit, social worker, nurse, me. He's done this dance with inspectors, I can tell. His smile lands somewhere south of polite. Any reason you're in my hospital at 2 a.m., Lieutenant? Unlawful confinement, Harris says. We were at Canyon Yard, Store D, OBT North Vestibule. We have a judge's telephonic order preserving records and video, and your keys. Harker's smile goes brittle. Keys go missing. Not when we photographed them in your drawer, I say, and match tags to doors. Store D's chain was shiny from use. The hatch marks on the wall don't lie. Roy. He glances at me like I'm a wrench someone left in the wrong drawer. And you are? Officer Julia McCray, Flag PD. He drags his tongue along his teeth, thinking fast. You kids watch too much TV. Those storage rooms hold scrap, not people. Scrap that drinks from dented water jugs and tapes the Big Dipper at 5 feet? I say. Scrap that leaves a bent North Star pin wedged under baseboard with initials EB? We pulled your logs. Your friend Milton's badge pinged doors on the same nights those strips flipped on your whiteboard rotation. You want to say, coincidence, into my body cam? He goes still. Not from guilt, but calculus. Which lie pays best. His gaze flicks to room 12 at the word pin as if he knows exactly which tiny object he can't afford to have mean anything. You don't have a confession, he says. Not yet, Harris says, but I've got a living mother and a ledger that isn't yours. Harker barks what he thinks is a laugh. Elaine Bennett? She went off the rails, tried making the agency look bad, had a crush on Craig. He let her down. She... Stop, I say, heat a notch up in my voice. She is 5 doors that way. She didn't go anywhere. He looks like a man who stuck his hand in a box he thought was empty and found a live wire. She's here? Receiving care, I say. Under protective order. His face shifts. Greed. Then fear, then that careful blank I've seen on men who think paperwork can outrun winter. He pitches his voice low. You know who signs contracts, officer? It isn't me. Eleanor steps forward, a small woman with a courtroom spine. And yet your cuff is stained with track grease, she says. You can explain your portion under oath. Marta Diaz from DCS arrives with a wool coat and a spiral notebook already half full. She shakes off the night, flashes her badge, and positions herself so she's between Harker and the pediatric wing without making a scene. Mr. Harker, she says, voice calm, you're not to approach the minor or the mother. Agency order. Violate it, and we'll add interference. He tries the foreman's last refuge, offense. You all love headlines, he says to no one and everyone. You'll be done with this by Tuesday. Meanwhile, we have to find places for kids nobody wants while you chase ghosts in tunnels. That woman left her kid. We gave her a warm room and a meal she didn't have to cook. Maybe it wasn't perfect. It was temporary. Temporary, I repeat, the word tasting like cheap metal. Behind me, Nora whispers Polaris to Elisa's hand like it's the only noun that won't cut her mouth. Eleanor's eyes don't blink. Temporary is a coat you loan a stranger in a storm, she says. Not a chain on a door. Harris keeps it procedural. Mr. Harker, place your hands on the wall. We're detaining you on probable cause for unlawful imprisonment and endangerment. You have the right to remain silent. He blusters, then goes quiet when he sees 2 more transit officers step from the elevator. He sets his palms to the painted cinder block. His breath fogs the glass of the nursery window across the hall. Harris cuffs him with the kind of efficiency that says he's done this in barns and boardrooms. "Lieutenant," I murmur. "Call CSU to bag his jacket. The cuff stain." "Already in motion," he says, steering Harker toward the elevator. "And McCray, watch your 6. Milton appears as if conjured by the word. He ghosted back in while we pushed paperwork uphill. The Suburban I saw in the far lot is tucked at the curb now, exhaust writing its lonely script into the snow. He wears the same patient smile with a layer of offended dignity. "Officer," he says, "is this necessary?" "Yes," I say. "You have no idea how complicated—" "Children in locked rooms aren't complicated," I say. "They're criminal." He adjusts his tie. "Watch your adjectives," he says lightly, but the tendons in his neck are cords. Marta steps beside me, her notebook open to a clean page. "Mr. Milton," she says, "I need your phone. Agency retention order. Do not erase. If you refuse, we'll obtain a warrant. Meanwhile, you're suspended. Effective 10 minutes ago. Return your badge." For the first time, the smile cracks. This is petty. "This is accountability," Marta says. "Badge, phone." He hands them over like a man surrendering a knife in a court that bars steel, but not sharpened words. "You're making a career mistake," he tells her. She writes one sentence in that notebook with deliberate care. "The only mistake would be doing nothing," she says. He takes a half-step sideways, testing lines of egress. Past Eleanor, brick, past me, no, past the guard, trained, toward room 12, never. He judges and chooses swagger. "You'll be embarrassed," he says to Eleanor. "Philanthropy painted into a corner." "I love corners," she says. "They hold pictures up." He leaves because men like him don't like staying in rooms where they no longer bend gravity. The automatic door breathes him out into the storm. I push into room 12 because I need to wash my eyes in something true. Elaine's chair is parked at the threshold, her hands on the wheels, white-knuckled and shaking from cold and arrival. She's not across the line yet. Nora lies very still, like the air between them is a river that has to be read before you step. "Elaine," Elise says, voice low as the projector hum. "We're going to name each piece. Wheel roll, half a foot, then stop, then breath." "Wheel," Elaine repeats, as if remembering how to shape a life. We roll. The chair noses over the threshold. A soft squeak that would mean nothing to you or me and means everything to a girl whose bones remember how doors sound. Nora flinches, then looks at our hands. No one touches without her eyes. "Breath," Elise says, counting with her fingers where Nora can see. 1, 2, 3. Still stars. Nora lifts the bear and taps its ear. Too quick, one slow, too quick, and then she does something I will see when I close my eyes at 70. She extends the bear across the river of air. A gift bridge. I guide it with the lightest touch so it doesn't wobble. "Mom," she whispers, hoarse. "Still. North." Elaine folds her lips in, pressing the cry back because she knows we have to get all the way across first. She touches the bear with one finger, then the tiny star, then the blanket near Nora's knee, stopping shy of skin. "I'm here," she says, voice gone to gravel. "I'll be here when you sleep and when you wake." Nora's hands hover, testing heat like a skittish foal. Then she lays her palm over Elaine's 2 fingers. It lasts a second. Maybe 2, the first human contact they've had in the same room without a door eating the middle. Elise breathes like she's been sprinting. Monica's pen stops moving mid-stroke. I pretend I have dust in my eye. "Officer?" Harris calls from the hall, voice pitched not to startle. "We need you for 5. "Elaine," I say, crouching so she sees my mouth. "I'll be back right after the 7 stars. Elise will count them with you. Marta is here from DCS. She's good." Elaine finds my hand and squeezes. Too quick, one slow, too quick. "Don't let them click," she says. "I won't," I promise, and step out into a corridor where paperwork can carve a path for love if you cut it straight. In the conference nook, Harris has laid evidence like constellations. My photos of Store D, the tunnel vestibule, the ledger with its neat entries and tiny circled dots for north. CSU texts a grainy frame sharpened enough to show Milton's profile near Store D last week. Kent's portable scanner hums. Eleanor dials the county attorney on speaker. "Judge Pritchard is signing arrest warrants now," the clerk says, joining like a voice from a radio show. "Foreman Harker for unlawful imprisonment and endangerment. Milton for conspiracy and evidence tampering. Service authorized pre-dawn." Harris glances toward the snow-wet glass doors. Headlights move like low stars. "We'll take Harker now," he says. "We'll sit on Milton's place until the papers hit the dash." "Officer McCray," Eleanor says, turning to me. "When this lands in court, Nora's voice matters once, not 10 times. We'll route interviews through the Child Advocacy Center. For tonight, we protect." "Copy," I say. "I'll write the timeline. Elisa's affidavit ties the pin to the outreach. Elaine's ledger cements winter nights to doors." A resident peeks around the corner, cheeks flushed, voice careful. "She's asking for the officer," he says. "The one who said she'd be there after the dipper." I stand. "I'm right here," I say, already moving, and the hall seems shorter, as if the hospital shifted bones to make a path. In room 12, the starfield breathes. Nora's eyes find me like a fixed point. She presses the bear to her chest and pats the pin. Too quick, one slow, too quick, then lifts her chin. "Stay. When dark," she whispers. "Yes," I say, and the word feels like a sworn thing. "All the way through to morning." Outside, snow frets against the windows. Somewhere in town, a printer clicks out a warrant with a judge's name at the bottom. Somewhere else, a man with a ruined cuff looks at his phone and calculates the cost of a lie. In here, a star on a bear's ear throws a stubborn glint against the ceiling, and for the first time since Observatory Mesa, the room feels oriented. Night turns itself inside out and becomes a kind of morning in the pediatric wing. The projector sky eases toward a gentler blue. Facilities slides felt pads onto every latch and posts handwritten signs that say in block letters, "No clicking." Harris works 3 phones until his voice is a steady wire between dispatch, the county attorney, and the judge's clerk. Marta Diaz sets up a quick staffing with Monica and Elise at the nurses' station. Coffee no one drinks, pens that scratch like insects on paper. I stand in the doorway of room 12 while Nora dozes and wakes in little tides. Every time her eyes stir, she taps the bear's ear, too quick, one slow, too quick, and I answer with the same pressure on her palm. We don't call it code. We call it, "We hear you." At 4:12 a.m., the printer in the back office coughs and spits a thin stack. Harris reads the warrants without ceremony. Harker, unlawful imprisonment, endangerment. Milton, conspiracy, evidence tampering. Search at home and office for electronic media and records. "Serve Harker now," the county attorney says on speaker. "Hold Milton's house until first light. We don't want a bad shoot over a hard drive." Harris nods into the phone and heads for the elevator with 2 transit officers. "I'll be back for the handoff to Child Advocacy," he tells me. "Write the timeline tight." I draft it at a corner desk beneath a poster that says, "Wash your hands," and another that says, "You are brave." Facts like stones in a line. Observatory Mesa. Exposure. Pin in palm. Response to Nora. Flinch at lock. Wrist indentations. Elisa's projector and Polaris. Milton's attempted removal. Angela Soto's call. Court order. Canyon yard. Store D. OBT. Chain, hatch marks, dipper taped at 5 feet, bent pin with EB, Elaine found, cold, oriented, and ledger. I attach photos, timestamps, names. I sign and time the bottom the way my father taught me, legible enough a stranger can trust it. Marta reads the first page, then the last. "Clean," she says. "Thank you." At 5:03 a.m., a plainclothes detective from the Child Advocacy Center arrives with a trauma specialist. They carry puppets and legal forms with equal reverence. "We'll do a minimal facts interview," the specialist says, warm but firm. "One time, recorded, short. Only what's necessary for safety and probable cause. The rest waits until she's ready." We clear a room with a soft rug and a mural that has no doors in it, only trees and a fox with a secret smile. Elise walks Nora there slow, naming every sound as they pass. "Squeak of wheel," she says. "Warm air." Nora clutches the bear, Polaris bright on its ear. Elaine watches from the doorway, hands flat on the frame like a woman feeling the temperature of a new world. The specialist kneels so her eyes meet Nora's. "Can I ask you a few questions?" she murmurs. "You can say stop any time." Nora nods, a solemn little bob. The recorder light glows like a dull star. The questions are simple and built to keep a child whole. "Did anything scare you? Where do you feel safe? Can you show me with your hand what sound the door makes?" Nora taps the bear's ear. Too quick, one slow, too quick, and points toward the north wall where the mural trees stand. "There," she whispers, "past the cold." "That's enough," the specialist says softly, after 5 minutes that feel like 10 years. She clicks the recorder off and hands the bear back as if it's evidence and also a heart. "You did perfect." Back in room 12, Elaine's energy is the brittle kind you get after a vigil. Elise warms her hands with a disposable heat pack and a nurse's stare that says drink and rest are not negotiable. Elaine keeps glancing at the door as if the law might evaporate in daylight. "It won't," I tell her. "Judge Pritchard signed. And your ledger has more spine than most men I've cuffed." She almost smiles. "I wrote it like charting," she says. "Date, time, what was done, what you observed, who else saw it. A life can be saved by what you observed." Harris returns with snow in his hair and the kind of grin he saves for paperwork that lands. "Harker is in cuffs at the transit office," he says. "CSU bagged the jacket. Grease matches the door hardware we pulled off OBT. He tried to say the marks were for measuring spare pipe. I'll let the jury laugh later." "And Milton?" Eleanor asks, stepping out of a call to stand where decisions live. "We have units sitting on his house and his office," Harris says. "He's not home, but his badge pinged a printer at 1:40 a.m. at Canyon Yard's admin building. We'll catch it." "County attorney's drafting additions to the warrant," Kent says, checking his phone. "Fraud, too. Looks like he siphoned temporary observation funds into a shell vendor for storage upgrades. Those chains and locks don't buy themselves." Marta closes her notebook. "Here's how we protect the human beings while you prosecute the crimes," she says. "We place a 24-hour guard at Nora's door until discharge. We hold the protective order in DCS's system and mirror it in hospital records. We authorize mother-child contact under nurse supervision. We schedule a preliminary hearing for a transitional custody plan. If Elaine is medically cleared and housing is safe, we move toward reunification. Ms. Pike's fund can support immediate needs." "Consider them supported," Eleanor says. "Rent, clothes, food, therapy. I'll wire a grant today, and a longer one when we get the court order." Elaine looks like someone just told her gravity can be turned down. "I'm supposed to be the one doing the helping," she whispers. "I filed the complaints, and then I got afraid of the wrong thing, being the woman who makes noise, not the woman who loses her child. So I hid where I could watch." She looks at me as if I might carry the weight a moment so she can breathe. "I left our door unlocked one night for a neighbor, and they walked in and—" "You survived," I say. Quiet, because truth is a door, too. "You taught your daughter a code that kept her heart organized. You left a star where good people could find it." Elise presses a cup of warm apple juice into Elaine's hands like a sacrament. "You come from the women who mark door frames," she says. "You don't need to be perfect to be good. You just need to keep showing up through the weather." At 7:12 a.m., dawn finally tips a thin light against the window. The projector blinks and resumes, stubborn. Outside, plows push tired waves of snow into tired piles. The town looks like it held its breath all night and isn't sure how to let it go. A deputy serves Milton's home. He's not there. His Suburban sits crooked, driver's door dusted with flakes that haven't melted from a warm body. His phone keeps ringing in an evidence drawer, face down, silent now. His office printer spits a last sheet as CSU walks in. It's a copy of the whiteboard rotation with 3 strips missing, the ones marked OBS, CCS, OBT. He's behind us by hours and too late by years. "Press is already nibbling," Harris says, thumb on his earpiece. "We'll say the words we can say. Ongoing investigation, no danger to the public, hospital and DCS cooperating, mother and child safe." Eleanor offers a half smile. "And then I'll say what we must say, that care is not a closet, and temporary doesn't include a chain." Monica brings new scrubs for Elaine, a toothbrush, lotion that doesn't smell like hospital. Marta returns with a plain soft hoodie and a voucher for a motel where the doors don't click, and a small kitchenette waits for eggs tomorrow. Elise tucks a tiny paper bag into Elaine's lap. Inside, a fresh Polaris pin from a drawer she keeps for outreach nights. "No rush," she murmurs, "but when the time is right, it goes where she says it does." Nora stirs and opens her eyes. The room is grayer with morning, but the stars are still on. Elise insists they stay until the hardware of the day proves itself. Nora looks at the hoodie, the bag, the people. She looks at the door and waits for the sound. We don't let it. Security palms the bar. The door breathes instead of bites. I kneel, and I know what I'm about to ask will sit in me for a long time if she says no. "Nora," I say, "would you like to see a winter sky without a ceiling? Sometime very soon. The observatory opens after the plows. We could go together. You, your mom, the nurse with the good projector. We can stand under the real thing and find north by looking up." Her eyes widen. She touches the bear's ear. Too quick, one slow, too quick. Then she looks at Elise, at Elaine, and, God help me, at me. She nods, tiny and grave, as if this is a vow. Marta clears her throat, practical soft. "First, we meet a judge," she says. "A hearing. It's short. We'll be with you." Nora pulls the little paper bag into her lap and peeks. The new pin winks. She closes the bag and hugs it to her chest. We move. Harris peels to the courthouse with evidence. Kent heads to file motions. Eleanor calls her driver and someone who opens observatory gates. Elise prints her affidavit, hands it to Marta, then tucks blankets tighter one last time. Monica signs her half-dozen forms with a pen that's worked most of its ink out on nights like this. I fall in beside the wheelchair, my palm ready for small hands. We slide through the hallway past the fish and the bulletin board with construction paper snowflakes made by children who learned safety in kindergarten and needed it here. The elevator dings, padded to a whisper. The doors open. For a second, we see ourselves mirrored in the stainless steel. Tired, stubborn, oriented. We ride up to a floor with windows that spill honest light. The courtroom waits at the end of a short hall, its door propped open with a rubber wedge so it doesn't click. A bailiff nods. Judge Pritchard sits on the bench with the kind of awake that comes from hard coffee and a conscience. "Case of Nora Bennett," the clerk calls, voice steady. I touch the bear's ear. Too quick, one slow, too quick. Nora looks at me, at Elaine, and whispers a word that's half breath, half hope. Home. The courtroom is small enough that you can hear paper breathe. Morning light puddles on the seal behind the bench. Judge Pritchard scans faces and then the stack in front of her, lips pressed in a line that means attention, not anger. "Let's make this simple and clear," she says. The child, Nora Bennett, is present with her mother, Elaine Bennett, Nurse Elise Porter, Officer Julia McCray, DCS Representative Marta Diaz, and counsel for the hospital. The court has reviewed affidavits, photographs, and a ledger maintained by Ms. Bennett. The state has presented probable cause for arrests of Roy Harker and Craig Milton. Ms. Diaz? Marta stands, voice steady. Your Honor, DCS requests a temporary custody order placing Nora with her mother, subject to safety conditions. Supervised contact for 72 hours, a protective order against Milton and Harker, no contact provisions for any affiliates listed under the shell vendor Storage Upgrades, and a commitment to a child advocacy center follow-up. We support reunification. Judge Pritchard nods. Ms. Bennett? Can you stand? Elaine rises with help from the wheelchair arms. The knit hat is gone, her hair is a wreck, but her chin is cut from cleaner cloth. Yes, Your Honor. You filed concerns about winter placements before this, the judge says, not a question. I did, Elaine answers. I should have filed louder. The judge looks at Nora, and her voice gentles in the way adults forget to do in rooms like this. Nora, good morning. You don't have to speak. You've done the hard part already. Nora's eyes flick from the seal to her mother's mouth to my hand where it rests on the wheelchair handle. She taps the bear's ear once, twice, then slow, then twice again. I answer with my palm against the chair. The judge doesn't miss the rhythm. Something in her softens, and for a second I can see her kitchen, a coffee mug with a chip, the way anyone can belong to a child they've just met if they listen right. Orders are granted, she says, gavel low so it doesn't bite. Temporary custody with mother, protective orders entered, CAC interview preserved, hospital to discharge when medically appropriate, Sheriff's Office to assist Transit PD with arrests and a search of Canyon Yards Administrative Office and Mr. Milton's home. Ms. Diaz, Coordinate Services. Ms. Pike. Eleanor inclines her head. My fund will cover immediate needs and longer-term therapy. Good, the judge says. Officer McCray, thank you for not pretending this was ordinary. Yes, Your Honor, I say, because the only other answer is a story about a slider and the word temporary said like mercy, and this isn't the room for that story now. The clerk hands out papers. The bailiff props the door with a rubber wedge as if God herself ordered no clicking today. We roll into the hall. Everything happens fast. Release signatures, nurse instructions, Marta's checklist in boxes that hold air and groceries and time. Security escorts us to the elevator. Nora's grip on the bear loosens a hair when the doors open without a latch. Outside, the storm has burned down to a slow sift. Mars Hill looks like a shoulder leaning into sun. Eleanor's driver idles by the curb, heat rolling. Elise tucks a scarf around Elaine's neck. You're coming too, she tells me. You promised a sky. I did, I say, and promise is a word that either stays in your mouth or gets out and does work. We put the chair in the lift van Marta wrangled in an hour like she's been doing this all her life. Harris follows in the Tahoe with the evidence case and the kind of smile that means a man sees a charge sheet coming together like a constellation. Lowell Observatory opens a back gate because Eleanor knows people and because sometimes institutions choose to be more than their hours. The path to the dome is plowed in a ribbon that shines. Ponderosa pines flank us like dark sentries. The air is the kind you can drink. A tech meets us with mittens in a bin and a care for quiet. We'll keep doors soft, he says, a sentence that feels like a prayer. Inside, the dome smells like old wood and clean metal. The great eye of the telescope waits, patient as a creature that has learned to hold its breath. The motor hum is gentle. A red light pools on the floor like a heartbeat. Name every sound, Elise whispers. Murmur, hum, soft roll. We do. No clicks. Only breath and the low note of a thing that knows how to turn without hurting anyone. Nora's eyes are wide, but her shoulders are not up around her ears anymore. Elaine stands with both hands on the chair like she's steadying a ship. The tech swings the scope slow. Harris ducks the rail with his hands out of his pockets like he's a man on a first date with wonder. Eleanor posts by the door with the same posture she used in the hallway, a pillar by choice. Marta unwraps a thermos. "Hot cocoa," she says. "Hospitals should serve it the minute a judge signs." We laugh, the small kind, the safe kind. The dome opens. Light changes. It's like the ceiling we've used as a kindness all night lifts its own face. Cold touches our cheeks exactly once and then disappears into our clothes. The sky is not a screen. It is a thing that keeps its promises. "Okay," Elise says, pointing where there is no fear. "Big Dipper, pointer 1, pointer 2. Nora tracks the way she did under a projector. She doesn't need the bear for cadence anymore, but she keeps it anyway. Leaving familiar things too fast has its own peril. She aligns her tiny finger with the air, a child's straight edge. The line lands on a point that is not the brightest, but is the steadiest. "Polaris," she whispers. "Polaris," we answer. Elaine takes a breath that sounds like a thaw. "I'm sorry," she says to her daughter, to the wood, to the pine outside. "I'm here." Nora's hand lifts and hovers, then settles on her mother's sleeve. It's more than they managed in room 12. Outside, a bird knifes through cold without a sound. Inside, Harris's phone buzzes and he kills it without looking, like a man who knows which story he's in. Eleanor opens the little paper bag and spills its treasure into her palm. "New pin," she says, to no one in particular, and to me. North, for when the map is wrong. Nora takes it. She studies it the way some children study insects, intense, gentle, exact. She turns to me and tips her head in a question that is older than her years. "May I?" I kneel, so my jacket is level with her small hands. She is careful with metal in a way kids are after a year of doors and adult temper. She threads the clasp through the fabric of my lapel. Not uniform. Nobody needs a badge on this. But the plain jacket I put on because hospital air dries you out. The pin snicks shut, soft as a good answer. She presses it once with her thumb. Too quick, one slow, too quick. I answer with the same pattern tapped against her wrist, where the ridged indentations have already begun to fade under the work of warmth and time. "Thank you," I say. She looks past me to the scope, to the dome, to the dusting of snow caught in the gear teeth near the opening. For a second, the whole mess of paper and cuffs and quartz recedes into a ring around this center. A girl, a mother, a star, some stubborn adults, a town that learned a new sound for safety. I think about my father on a blanket near this same hill, telling me the trick of not getting lost in a spinning world. Find the thing that doesn't run. Harris steps up, voice low. "Milton's in custody," he says. They pulled him outside his office trying to carry a box that wasn't his. CSU has his hard drives. County attorney's already using the word racketeering under her breath. "Good," Eleanor says, not triumphant. "Necessary." Marta wipes her eyes with the back of her glove, then pretends the air is sharper than it is. "We'll do a home check this afternoon," she tells Elaine. "I'll bring blankets and a door wedge." "We'll bring a nightlight," Elise adds, "for the hallway, not the closet." Elaine nods. "We'll mark a door frame," she says, voice rough. "The one that's ours." The tech swivels the scope a hair. The dome purrs. No click. Nora watches the little shift without flinching. She leans forward, face tipped up. Her breath blooms in a small cloud and vanishes. She presses the bear against her chest. Then, deliberate, precise, unhooks the bent, old pin from its ear. The points are blunted from survival. She tucks it into her mother's palm and closes Elaine's fingers over it like a seed. "Home," she says, like a map closing.